Most curses are meant to destroy, but Zareth's curse was meant to teach. 3 years ago, she had spoken the words that would bring the arrogant Alpha King to his knees, not knowing that one day, she would be the only one who could save him from the very magic she had unleashed. The Shadowfen market reeked of desperation and dark magic. Zareth moved through the crowded stalls with practiced ease, her hooded cloak concealing silver-streaked black hair and eyes that glowed faint violet when her emotions ran high. She kept them carefully dulled, now the color of storm clouds, as she selected herbs from a weathered vendor's table. 3 years. 3 years since she'd cursed the Alpha King of Thornhaven and fled into exile. 3 years of hiding in the outer territories, taking odd magical jobs under false names, never staying anywhere long enough to be found. The bounty on her head had only grown with time, 50,000 gold marks for the witch who had brought down Ryker Nightshade, the most powerful alpha in 5 kingdoms. She hadn't meant for things to go so far. But then again, he hadn't meant to execute her younger brother for a crime he didn't commit. Zareth's fingers tightened around the bunch of nightshade in her hand, the memory flashing unbidden. 16-year-old Davin, accused of stealing from the royal treasury. No trial, no investigation, just Ryker's cold decree and the executioner's blade. A baby brother, the only family she had left, gone in a heartbeat because a king couldn't be bothered with something as trivial as proof. The rage had been all-consuming. Zareth was already a powerful witch, trained in the old magics that most had forgotten. That night, she had broken into the palace, bypassed every ward and protection spell, and found the Alpha King in his chambers. She could still see his face, sharp cheekbones, dark hair, golden eyes that held no remorse, only irritation at being disturbed. "You took everything from me," she had whispered, power crackling at her fingertips, "so I'll take everything from you." The curse she'd woven was intricate, born from grief and fury. With each full moon, Ryker would weaken. His alpha power would drain, his wolf would fade, his strength would crumble. In 5 years, he would be completely human, powerless, mortal, vulnerable. Everything he'd built his identity upon would be stripped away, bit by agonizing bit. She'd wanted him to suffer as she had suffered, to lose everything slowly, to feel it slipping through his fingers like sand, unable to stop it. What she hadn't counted on was the guilt that would follow, or the nightmares where Davin looked at her with disappointed eyes, asking if vengeance had brought him back, or the hollow feeling that came with knowing she'd become exactly what Ryker had accused her brother of being: a criminal, an outcast, someone who broke the laws of the kingdom. "Oi, witch," the vendor's gravelly voice cut through her thoughts. "You buying or just fondling my merchandise?" Zareth dropped 3 copper coins on the table and pocketed the nightshade. As she turned to leave, a commotion erupted at the market's entrance. Her blood turned to ice. Royal guards, a dozen of them, in Thornhaven's crimson and gold, pushing through the crowd with methodical efficiency. And at their center, looking more dead than alive, walked Alpha King Ryker Nightshade himself. His golden eyes, once bright with arrogant power, were now dimmed and sunken. His face was gaunt, his movements slow and labored. The curse was killing him faster than she'd calculated. 3 years in, and he looked like he had mere months left. Their eyes met across the crowded market. Recognition flared in his gaze, followed immediately by something she didn't expect, not rage, but desperate hope. Zareth ran. Zareth crashed through the underbrush, her lungs burning as she fled deeper into the Blackwood forest. Behind her, she could hear the guards' shouts growing fainter, but she didn't slow. Not yet, not until she reached her sanctuary. The hidden cottage materialized as she whispered the reveal spell, its glamour dissolving like morning mist. She burst through the door, slamming it behind her, and activating every ward she'd carefully laid over the past 6 months. This place was supposed to be safe, untraceable. How had he found her? Her hands shook as she lit candles with a snap of her fingers, violet light flaring briefly in her eyes. The cottage was small but functional, a workbench covered in spell components, shelves lined with grimoires and potion bottles, a narrow bed in the corner. And hidden beneath the floorboards, her most precious possession, the journal containing every detail of the curse she'd cast. Zareth pulled it out now, frantically flipping through pages of notes and diagrams. The Moonfall curse, she'd called it. Each full moon would drain more of the Alpha King's power until nothing remained. She'd designed it to be irreversible, a permanent punishment for a permanent loss. But something was wrong. According to her calculations, Ryker shouldn't look this deteriorated for at least another year. Consuming him? The curse was accelerating, consuming him faster than intended. She traced the runic patterns she'd drawn 3 years ago, searching for the flaw. There, a small variation in the binding sigil. In her grief-fueled rage, she'd twisted the symbol just slightly, not enough to notice in the moment, but enough to create an exponential decay rather than a linear one. "Gods damn it," she whispered. At this rate, Ryker would be dead within 3 months. The realization should have brought satisfaction. He'd murdered her brother. He deserved to suffer, to fade, to know the helplessness she'd felt watching Davin's execution. So why did her stomach twist with something uncomfortably close to regret? A sharp knock at her door made her jump. Her wards hadn't triggered, which meant whoever stood outside possessed magic strong enough to bypass them undetected. "I know you're in there, Zareth Ravenna." The voice was weak, raspy, but unmistakably Ryker's. "I've come alone. No guards, no weapons, just, please, I need to speak with you." She pressed her back against the door, heart hammering. This had to be a trap. Alpha Kings didn't travel alone, especially not ones with a death curse, slowly eating them alive. "I know what you did to me," Ryker continued. "I know it was you who cursed me that night 3 years ago, and I know why." Zareth's breath caught. "I also know." His voice cracked, and she heard him lean heavily against the door. "I know that you're the only witch in 5 kingdoms powerful enough to have cast this curse. Which means you're the only one who might be able to break it." "Why would I do that?" Zareth called out, her voice hard despite the turmoil inside her. "You murdered my brother." Silence stretched between them. When Ryker finally spoke, his words were barely above a whisper. "I know, and I was wrong." Zareth's hand froze on the door handle. In 3 years of imagining this confrontation, never once had she expected those words. "Your brother didn't steal from the treasury," Ryker continued. "I discovered the truth 2 years ago. It was Lord Castor, my own cousin, who'd been embezzling. He framed Davin to cover his tracks. I executed an innocent boy because I was too arrogant to investigate, too certain of my own judgment to question it." The journal slipped from Zareth's other hand, hitting the floor with a thud. "I can't bring him back," Ryker said, his voice thick with something that sounded like genuine anguish. "Gods, I would if I could. But I can tell you that Castor is in my dungeons, awaiting execution for his crimes. I can tell you that I've spent 2 years trying to find you, not for revenge, but to apologize. To beg your forgiveness for a wrong I can never make right." Zareth squeezed her eyes shut, tears burning behind her lids. This wasn't how this was supposed to go. He was supposed to be the monster, the tyrant, the villain of her story. He wasn't supposed to sound broken, remorseful. Human. And now? Ryker continued, a bitter laugh escaping him. Now I'm dying from the very justice you served. Poetic, isn't it? I took your brother's life, so you're taking mine. Slowly, the way I deserve. And then why are you here? Zareth demanded, her voice cracking. Why seek me out if you believe you deserve this? Another long silence. Then, because I'm a selfish bastard who doesn't want to die. Because my kingdom needs me, there are threats at the borders, internal conflicts I haven't resolved. Because... He paused. Because I wanted to see the face of the woman strong enough to bring me to my knees, to tell her she was right, and to ask, even though I have no right to ask, if there's any way to break this curse. Zareth's hand trembled on the door handle. Every logical part of her screamed to leave him there, to let the curse run its course, to claim the justice she'd sought. But Davin's voice echoed in her memory, not disappointed, but gentle, the way he'd always been. You're better than your anger, Z. Don't let it consume you. With a shaking breath, Zareth opened the door. Ryker Nightshade stood on her doorstep, and Zareth barely recognized him. The arrogant Alpha King, she remembered, had been tall, powerful, radiating dominance with every breath. The man before her now was a shadow, gaunt, pale, with dark circles under those once bright golden eyes. His black hair, formerly perfectly groomed, hung limp and lifeless. He swayed slightly, gripping the doorframe for support. You look terrible, Zareth said flatly, stepping aside. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. You look exactly as I remember. Beautiful and terrifying. She ignored the comment, gesturing curtly for him to enter. He moved slowly, each step seeming to cost him. When he finally settled into the chair by her fireplace, he looked like he might never get up again. Zareth kept her distance, leaning against her workbench with arms crossed. How did you find me? Your magic leaves traces, Ryker said. Unique signatures. I hired a tracker which cost me a fortune and 3 months of searching. Powers. But she found the patterns in your spells. He looked around the cottage. Impressive wards, by the way. I only got through because you designed the curse to be tied to me. There's a connection between us now. Zareth's jaw tightened. She hadn't considered that aspect. Curses created bonds, links between caster and victim. It was one reason why most witches avoided them: too much entanglement, too much risk of backlash. Tell me about my brother, she said abruptly. Tell me everything you learned. Ryker's expression grew heavy. Lord Castor had been stealing from the treasury for years. Small amounts at first, then larger sums as he grew bolder. When the discrepancy was finally noticed, he needed a scapegoat. Davin worked in the treasury as a clerk, young, quiet, no powerful family to defend him, perfect target. And you just believed it, Zareth said bitterly. No investigation, no trial. The evidence seemed solid, Ryker said, but there was no defense in his tone, only acknowledgement of failure. Documents with his handwriting, testimony from Castor himself. I was dealing with border raids at the time, distracted, and he exhaled slowly. I made the decision quickly, too quickly. I wanted to send a message that theft would not be tolerated in my kingdom. You sent a message, all right, Zareth said coldly. That innocent lives mean nothing to you. Yes. Ryker met her gaze steadily. That's exactly the message I sent. And I've had 2 years to live with that truth. Zareth turned away, staring into the fire. She'd spent 3 years imagining Ryker as a heartless tyrant, incapable of remorse or self-reflection. But the man in her cottage seemed genuinely haunted by his actions. It would be easier if he'd arrived arrogant and demanding. Easier to let him die. How did you discover the truth? She asked finally. Castor got greedy, Ryker said. Started stealing larger amounts after Davin's execution. One of the treasury workers noticed patterns withdrawals that coincided with Castor's gambling debts. When I investigated personally this time, everything unraveled. Castor confessed under questioning. And what did you do to him? He's been in the dungeons for 2 years, Ryker said. I wanted to find you first, to tell you the truth before I executed him, to let you decide his fate, since you're the one who lost the most. Zareth turned back to him, surprised. You've kept him alive for 2 years just to give me that choice? It seemed the least I could do. Ryker leaned his head back against the chair, exhaustion evident in every line of his body. Though at this rate, I'll die before you make that decision, and my successor will likely just execute him anyway. Silence fell between them. Zareth studied the Alpha King, the man she'd hated with every fiber of her being for 3 years. Watching him now, broken and dying from her curse, she felt none of the satisfaction she'd expected, only a complicated tangle of anger, grief, and something she couldn't quite name. The curse is accelerating, she said abruptly. Faster than I designed it to. You have maybe 3 months. Ryker's eyes opened, meeting hers. Can it be broken? I don't know, Zareth admitted. I made it to be irreversible. But the acceleration means something's wrong with the binding. There might be possibilities, but it would require research, time, and access to you regularly to monitor the curse's progress. Whatever you need, Ryker said immediately. I'll provide it. Even if I can't break it? Zareth challenged. Even if all I do is watch you die slowly? Even then, Ryker said. At least I'll die knowing I tried. And he hesitated. At least I'll have had the chance to know the woman who saw through my arrogance to the monster beneath. I cursed you because you were a murderer, Zareth said. Not because I wanted to know you. And yet, Ryker said softly, here we are. 3 days after Ryker's arrival, Zareth's carefully constructed isolation shattered completely. She'd been working in her garden, harvesting moonbell flowers for a diagnostic potion, when the ward screamed a warning. Not Ryker's magic signature, he was inside, resting, but something else, something darker. Zareth bolted for the cottage just as a figure materialized from the shadows of the blackwood. Tall, elegant, with silver blonde hair and eyes like chips of ice. Lady Morvaine Ashbourne, Ryker's aunt, and the kingdom's High Sorceress. Well, well, Morvaine said, her voice silk over steel. The infamous Zareth Ravenna. How convenient that you've been hiding in my territory all along. Zareth's hands ignited with violet fire. Your territory is 50 miles south. I've expanded my holdings. Morvaine smiled, but it never reached her eyes. And imagine my surprise when my dear nephew's magical signature appeared in the Blackwood 3 days ago. I've been watching ever since, waiting to see what little drama would unfold. The cottage door burst open. Ryker stumbled out, one hand braced against the doorframe, the other crackling with golden alpha magic, weak but present. Aunt Morvaine, what a pleasant surprise. Save your strength, nephew, Morvaine said dismissively. We both know you're barely clinging to consciousness as it is. Her gaze slid back to Zareth, assessing. So this is the witch who cursed you. I must admit, I'm impressed. The Moonfall curse is notoriously difficult to cast. Most witches lack the power. Zareth kept her magic ready, instincts screaming danger. She'd heard of Morvaine Ashbourne, the High Sorceress, who'd advised 3 Alpha Kings, who'd consolidated power in Thornhaven's court for decades. Rumors whispered that she'd eliminated rivals with cold efficiency, always careful to keep her hands clean. What do you want? Zareth demanded. Want? Morvain laughed lightly. My dear, I'm here to help. Ryker came to you seeking a cure for his curse, yes? But you don't trust him, and he's too weak to force your cooperation. A stalemate. She stepped closer, moving with predatory grace. I, however, can offer something more compelling. I don't make deals with court sorceresses, Zareth said. Not even for the location of your brother's body? Zareth's magic flickered, shock breaking her concentration. What? Davin Ravenna, Morvain continued, examining her nails casually. Executed 3 years ago. Body disposed of in an unmarked grave outside the city. I know exactly where he's buried. Break my nephew's curse, and I'll tell you, you could finally give your brother a proper funeral. Closure, as they call it. Don't listen to her, Ryker said roughly, pushing away from the doorframe. Zareth, she's manipulating you. Of course I am, Morvain agreed cheerfully. But that doesn't make the offer less genuine. I do know where the boy is buried. And unlike my nephew, I actually have something you want. Zareth's mind raced. For 3 years, not knowing where Davin had been laid to rest had haunted her. The idea of him in an unmarked grave, forgotten, unmourned except by her, it was a wound that never healed. Quote, Why do you care if I break the curse? Zareth asked suspiciously. If Ryker dies, doesn't the throne pass to someone else? Someone you could control more easily? Clever girl, Morvain purred. Yes, the throne would pass to Ryker's cousin, Lord Castor. Oh wait, he's in the dungeons for treason. Then it would go to Ryker's younger sister, Princess Ilara. Sweet girl, but far too idealistic. Terrible for the kingdom's stability. You mean terrible for your power base, Ryker interjected. Morvain's smile sharpened. I've spent decades building influence in Thornhaven. I'm not about to watch it crumble because my fool nephew got himself cursed. So yes, I want him alive and on the throne, where I can continue to advise him. She's been trying to control me since I took the crown, Ryker said to Zareth. I've been blocking her power plays for years. That's why she wants me to survive so she can keep trying. At least I'm honest about it, Morvain said. Unlike you, nephew, pretending this is about atonement when really, you just don't want to die. She turned back to Zareth. So what will it be, little witch? Help my nephew and learn where your brother rests? Or let him die and wonder forever? Zareth looked between them, the dying Alpha King who'd killed her brother, and the calculating sorceress who saw people as chess pieces. Every instinct told her to refuse, to walk away from both of them and their poisonous politics. But the thought of finding Davin, of laying him to rest properly, of having a place to visit and mourn. I'll research the curse, Zareth said finally. But I make no promises about breaking it, and if I find out you're lying about my brother. You'll what? Curse me too? Morvain laughed. I look forward to watching you try, but no, I'm not lying. The body is where I say it is. Break the curse, and I'll draw you a map. With that, Morvain vanished in a swirl of silver light, leaving Zareth and Ryker alone in the garden clearing. I'm sorry, Ryker said quietly. I didn't know she was tracking me. I led her right to you. It's fine, Zareth said, though her hands still trembled with residual magic. I was going to help you anyway, or at least try. Ryker studied her face. Because you want to know where Davin is buried. Yes, Zareth admitted. There was no point in lying, but also because... She hesitated, hating what she was about to say. Because the curse is flawed. It's killing you faster than intended. And that's not justice, that's just murder. Something shifted in Ryker's expression. Surprise, maybe, or gratitude. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, Zareth said, turning back toward the cottage. I might not be able to save you, and even if I can, you'll still have to live with what you did to my brother. I know, Ryker said softly. Believe me, I know. As they went inside, neither noticed the shadow that detached from the forest edge, one of Morvaine's spies, already racing back to report to the High Sorceress that her plan was in motion. The diagnostic spell required blood, and Ryker's magic was so depleted that even a simple bloodletting charm was risky. This is going to hurt, Zareth warned, holding a silver blade over his palm. They were in her cottage's workshop, Ryker seated at the table while Zareth prepared the ritual. 3 days of research had yielded little. Every text on curse breaking emphasized that a curse designed to be irreversible was exactly that. But the flaw in her original casting gave her a thread to pull, however thin. I've survived worse, Ryker said, though his jaw tightened as she made the cut. Blood welled up, unusually dark, almost black at the edges. Zareth's breath caught. This isn't just the curse. You're poisoned. What? Ryker stared at his palm. Zareth moved quickly, adding his blood to the prepared potion. It hissed and bubbled, turning a sickly green. Someone's been dosing you with Nightvein. It's a slow-acting poison that suppresses healing and amplifies any existing magical damage. That's impossible, Ryker said. I have food tasters, ward stones that detect poison. Nightvein is nearly undetectable unless you're specifically looking for it. Zareth interrupted, her mind racing. And it's cumulative. Small doses over time, building up in your system. The curse is killing you, yes, but the poison is accelerating the process exponentially. Ryker's expression darkened. Who would have access to consistently poison me over months? They both said it at the same time. Morvaine. Gods damn it, Ryker swore, trying to stand. He swayed immediately, and Zareth caught his arm, surprised by how light he was, how much weight he'd lost. Sit down before you fall down, she ordered, guiding him back to the chair. If Morvaine's been poisoning you, confronting her now would be suicide. You're too weak. Then what do I do? Frustration and fear warred in his voice. Just sit here and let her kill me? No, Zareth said, making a decision. You let me try to save you. For the next week, Zareth worked with an intensity that surprised even herself. She'd told herself she was doing this to learn Davin's burial location, to extract what she needed from Morvaine's deal, but somewhere in the long nights of research and preparation, watching Ryker struggle to breathe, to move, to simply exist under the weight of her curse and his aunt's poison, something had shifted. She still hated what he'd done, still woke with grief sharp as broken glass in her chest when she thought of Davin. But she was beginning to separate the man from the act, to see the person beneath the title. Ryker, for his part, proved to be an unexpectedly patient subject. He submitted to every diagnostic spell, every painful procedure, without complaint. And in the quiet moments between treatments, they talked. Tell me about your brother, Ryker said one evening as Zareth prepared another blood purification draft. She stiffened. Why? Because I never knew him? Ryker said simply, I signed his death warrant without ever learning who he was. I'd like to know, if you're willing to tell me. Zareth was quiet for a long moment. Then, slowly, she began to speak. Davin was gentle, she said. In a world that valued strength and power, he was kind. He loved books, could spend hours in the library just reading. He wanted to be a scholar, not a warrior. A sad smile touched her lips. I used to tease him about it, tell him he needed to toughen up. He sounds like he was a good person, Ryker said. He was the best person, Zareth said fiercely. He didn't have a cruel bone in his body. The idea that he would steal, would harm anyone. It was absurd. But I was traveling when he was arrested. Didn't even know until... Her voice broke. Until I came home and found him already executed. Ryker's hands clenched on the table. Zareth, Don't, she said sharply. Don't apologize again. It won't change anything. I know. Ryker met her gaze steadily. But I am sorry. Truly. And I know that means nothing, but it's all I have to offer. The vulnerability in his voice, the genuine remorse, it cracked something in Zareth's carefully maintained anger. She turned back to her work, blinking away sudden tears. That night, as Ryker slept fitfully on the cot she'd set up for him, Zareth sat by the fire with her journal. The curse bond between them pulsed faintly, letting her sense his pain, his deteriorating condition. 3 weeks since he'd arrived, and despite her efforts, he was still dying. She needed more time, more knowledge, and possibly help. The thought made her stomach twist, but she couldn't deny the truth. Breaking a curse of this magnitude, while simultaneously purging poison from a dying Alpha King, it was beyond her abilities alone, which meant she'd have to do the one thing she'd sworn never to do: return to Thornhaven. When Ryker woke the next morning, Zareth was packing supplies into a leather satchel. "What are you doing?" he asked groggily. "We're leaving," Zareth said. "I need access to the Royal Library, and you need to be somewhere I can monitor you constantly. The cottage isn't sufficient anymore." Ryker sat up slowly. "You want to come back to Thornhaven?" "Zareth, there's still a bounty on your head. The guards will do exactly what you tell them," Zareth interrupted. "You're still the Alpha King, even if you're dying. Call off the bounty. Give me sanctuary and access to your resources, or die here in my cottage. Your choice." A smile tugged at Ryker's lips despite the seriousness of the situation. "You're terrifying when you're determined, you know that?" "I'm a witch," Zareth said. "Terrifying is part of the job description. Now get up. We have a long journey ahead, and you can barely walk. This is going to be unpleasant." "Wait," Ryker said as she moved to help him stand. "If you come to Thornhaven, Morvain will know. She'll have access to you, to manipulate you further." "Let her try," Zareth said, violet fire sparking in her eyes. "I'm done hiding, Persend. And if your aunt wants to play games, she'll find out exactly why the Moonfall curse was considered impossible to cast." As they prepared to leave the cottage, neither of them noticed the enchanted raven perched in the nearby tree. Morvain's eyes and ears, watching everything unfold exactly as the High Sorceress had planned. Thornhaven Palace rose from the mountainside like a crown of stone and steel, its towers piercing the gray sky. Zareth had last seen it 3 years ago, breaking through its wards to curse its king. Returning as a guest under his protection felt surreal. "The servants are going to talk," Ryker said as their carriage passed through the gates. He'd insisted on the covered carriage despite his weakness, knowing that if anyone saw him in his current state, it would spark panic. "Let them talk," Zareth said, though her stomach churned with anxiety. 50,000 gold marks for her capture. How many people in this palace had memorized her face, hoping for that reward? But Ryker had sent messengers ahead. By the time they arrived, the guard captain himself waited at the entrance, a grizzled man with sharp eyes and a scarred face. "Captain Thorn." Ryker greeted him as they exited the carriage. "I trust my orders were clear?" "Crystal, your majesty," Thorn said, though his gaze lingered on Zareth with obvious suspicion. "The bounty is officially rescinded. Lady Ravenna is under royal protection." He made the title sound like an insult. She's here as my guest and advisor, Ryker said firmly. Anyone who harms her answers to me personally. Spread the word. Thorne's jaw tightened, but he bowed. As you command. The palace interior was as grand as Zareth, remembered soaring ceilings, tapestries depicting centuries of nightshade rule, enchanted torches that never burned out. Servants stopped and stared as they passed, whispers following in their wake. Your Majesty! A young woman rushed forward, her face lighting up with relief. She was beautiful, with Ryker's same dark hair but warmer, amber gold eyes. You're back. When you left without word, I thought. She stopped abruptly, noticing Zareth. Oh, Alara, Ryker said, and there was genuine affection in his voice. This is Zareth Ravenna. She's going to be staying at the palace for a while. Zareth, my sister, Princess Alara. Alara's eyes widened. The witch who cursed you? The witch who's trying to save me, Ryker corrected. It's complicated. Alara muttered, but she studied Zareth with curiosity rather than hostility. Prosy. Well, any enemy of Aunt Morvain is a friend of mine. Welcome to Thornhaven, Lady Ravenna. Zareth blinked, surprised by the genuine warmth. Thank you, Your Highness. Just Alara, the princess said, waving a hand. Royal titles give me hives. Come on, I'll show you to your rooms. Ryker, you look like death. Go rest before you collapse in the hallway. Ryker didn't argue, which told Zareth how exhausted he truly was. As Alara led her through winding corridors, the princess kept up a steady stream of conversation. Fair warning, Aunt Morvain is going to lose her mind when she finds out you're here. She's been hovering around Ryker like a vulture, waiting for him to name her regent. The fact that he's brought you to the palace instead of crawling to her for help? Oh, she'll hate that. Good, Zareth said. Alara grinned. I like you already. Here we are, guest chambers, right next to Ryker's suite, he insisted. Something about needing you close to monitor his condition? The curse creates a bond, Zareth explained. Distance weakens my ability to track its progress. Right, the curse you cast on him. Alara's smile faded. Can I ask why? I mean, I've heard the official story that you did it for revenge, but I've also heard things about Lord Castor and your brother. Zareth met the princess's gaze steadily. Your brother executed mine for a crime he didn't commit. Lord Castor framed Davin to cover his own theft. And Ryker found out too late, Alara said softly. He told me, 2 years ago, when he discovered the truth. He stopped sleeping, stopped eating properly, became obsessed with finding you. She touched Zareth's arm gently. I know it doesn't fix what happened, but he's not the same man who gave that execution order. The guilt has been eating him alive. Close pause. The curse has been eating him alive, Zareth corrected. Poso. Maybe both, Alara said. Anyway, get settled. Dinner is at sunset. And Zareth? She paused at the door. Thank you for trying to save him. Whatever your reasons, whatever happens, thank you. Alone in her chambers, Zareth stood at the window, looking out over Thornhaven. Somewhere in this city was Davin's unmarked grave. Somewhere in this palace was the man who'd ordered his death. And somewhere, watching it all unfold, was Morvain, pulling strings Zareth couldn't yet see. She'd thought returning here would be difficult. She hadn't expected it to be this complicated. A knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. It's me, Ryker's voice called. May I come in? Zareth opened the door to find him leaning heavily against the frame. You're supposed to be resting. I wanted to make sure you were settled, Ryker said, and to give you this. He held out a key, access to the royal library. Every grimoire, Every spellbook, every text on curse breaking we have, it's yours. Zareth took the key, their fingers brushing briefly. The curse bond flared at the contact, and she felt his pain spike, a constant, grinding ache that never fully subsided. "You should sit down," she said, stepping aside, "before you fall down." Ryker made it to the chair by her fireplace before his legs gave out. "I'm sorry," he said, "about all of this, dragging you back here, putting you in danger." "Stop apologizing," Zareth said, moving to check his pulse. "It was weak, thready. I made the choice to come. Now let me work." But as she prepared a pain relief tonic, she was acutely aware of his gaze following her movements, of the way her hands trembled slightly when she handed him the vial, of the strange intimacy of tending to the man she'd once hated with every fiber of her being. "Zareth?" Ryker said softly after drinking the tonic. "If you can't break the curse, if I don't survive this, I need you to promise me something." "Don't talk like that," she said sharply. "Promise me you'll look after Alara," he continued, as if she hadn't spoken. "Morvain will try to control her, use her. Alara's too kind, too trusting. She'll need someone like you, someone strong enough to stand against my aunt." "You're not going to die," Zareth said firmly. "I won't let you." Ryker smiled sadly. "You sound like you care." Quote, "I care about not being a murderer," Zareth shot back. But even as she said it, she knew it wasn't quite true. Somewhere in the past few weeks, her feelings had grown more complicated, less black and white. She didn't love him, but she didn't want him dead anymore either. Pals. And that, perhaps, was even more dangerous. The Royal Library was a witch's dream. 3 stories of ancient texts, rare grimoires, and magical artifacts collected over centuries. Zareth spent her days here, surrounded by towers of books, searching desperately for anything that might help break the Moonfall curse. And Ryker, despite his deteriorating condition, spent his days with her. "You should be resting," Zareth said for the 100th time, not looking up from the manuscript she was studying. "I'm tired of resting," Ryker replied from where he sat across from her, slowly working through his own stack of texts. "Besides, this is my curse. I should help research it. You can barely hold a book without shaking." "Then it's good I'm reading sitting down." Despite herself, Zareth smiled. Over the past 2 weeks, she'd discovered that Ryker had a dry sense of humor that emerged when he wasn't playing the role of Alpha King. It made him more human. Less like the monster she'd built up in her mind. "Found something," Ryker said suddenly, sliding a book across the table. "Binding curses and blood magic. There's a section on curse bonds and how they can be manipulated." Zareth scanned the page, her heart quickening. "This says that a strong enough connection between caster and victim can create a feedback loop, that the curse can be redirected back through the bond." She stopped, realization dawning. It could work. "What could work?" Ryker leaned forward. "If I strengthen the curse bond between us, I might be able to pull the curse back into myself. Essentially, I'd be taking the Moonfall curse onto my own body." "Absolutely not," Ryker said immediately. "It's the only option." "No." His voice took on that alpha command that made people instinctively obey. "I won't let you sacrifice yourself for my mistakes." "It's not your choice," Zareth said, meeting his golden eyes steadily. "This is my curse, my magic. And if transferring it to myself is what saves you, then that's what I'll do." "And then what? You die instead?" Ryker's hands clenched on the table. "That's not justice, Zareth. That's just trading one death for another." "At least it would be the right person dying," she said quietly. The words hung between them. Ryker stood abruptly, pacing despite his obvious weakness. Is that what you think? That you deserve to die for cursing me? I cursed an innocent man. I wasn't innocent. Ryker's voice cracked. I executed your brother without proper investigation. I was arrogant, cruel, and careless with the lives under my protection. The curse was justice. Zareth, harsh justice maybe, but not undeserved. Then why am I trying so hard to save you? Zareth demanded, standing to face him. If you deserved it, why does the thought of you dying make me feel like I'm drowning? The admission hung in the air between them. Ryker stared at her, something vulnerable and raw in his expression. I don't know, he said softly. But I feel it too. This pull toward you that has nothing to do with the curse bond. I thought at first it was just the magic, but he took a step closer. But then you smile when you think I'm not looking. Or you sit with me when the pain is bad, even though you don't have to. And I think maybe, quote, don't, Zareth interrupted, but her voice came out as a whisper. Don't say it. Why not? Ryker took another step, close enough now that she could feel the heat of him, despite how cold his skin had become. Because you're afraid it might be true? That somehow, in the middle of all this darkness, we found something real? Because you're dying, Zareth said, and tears burned behind her eyes. Because even if there's something between us, even if it's real, it doesn't matter. The curse is killing you, the poison is killing you, and I can't lose someone else I care about. The confession escaped before she could stop it. Ryker's expression softened, and he raised a trembling hand to her face. Then save me, he said simply. Not by taking the curse onto yourself, but by breaking it. I know you can. You're the most powerful witch I've ever met. Power isn't enough, Zareth said, but she didn't pull away from his touch. The curse was designed to be permanent. Every text says the same thing. What's bound in blood and rage can't be undone. Then we'll find a way to do the impossible, Ryker said. His thumb brushed across her cheekbone, wiping away a tear she hadn't realized had fallen. Together. The word hung between them, weighted with meaning. Together. Zareth knew she should step back, maintain distance, keep things professional. But instead, she found herself leaning into his touch, her own hand coming up to cover his. This is a terrible idea, she whispered. Probably the worst I've ever had, Ryker agreed. And I once tried to negotiate a trade treaty while drunk. Despite everything, Zareth laughed. The sound surprised her. When had she last laughed? When had the weight on her chest lifted enough to allow it? Ryker smiled, and for a moment, she could see the man he might have been if grief and guilt and a death curse hadn't hollowed him out. Strong, warm, alive. There it is, he said softly. I was beginning to think I'd never see you smile. Don't get used to it, Zareth said, but there was no heat in the words. They stood there, frozen in a moment that felt stolen from time. The library around them faded, the books, the research, the impossible task ahead. For just a heartbeat, there was only this: two people who should have been enemies, finding something unexpected in the ruins of tragedy. Then Ryker swayed, his strength finally giving out. Zareth caught him, cursing as she felt how cold he'd become, how weak his pulse was. Library time is over, she said firmly, guiding him toward the door. You need rest and another blood purification treatment. Bossy, Ryker mumbled. But he didn't resist. As Zareth helped him back to his chambers, she was acutely aware of how right it felt, his weight against her side, her arm around his waist, the synchronization of their steps. The curse bond hummed between them, but this was something more, something that terrified her more than any magic ever had. Because curses could be broken, spells could be undone, But whatever was growing between them, that felt permanent in a way that magic never was, pressure. It happened on a night when twin moons hung full in the sky, a rare celestial event that occurred once every 5 years. Zareth woke to screaming. She bolted from her bed, magic igniting instinctively as she ran toward Ryker's chambers. The guards outside looked panicked, unsure whether to enter. "Move," Zareth ordered, shoving past them. Inside, the scene was chaos. Ryker writhed on his bed, his body convulsing as the curse surged with renewed violence. The twin moons amplified magical effects, including the Moonfall curse, herself. Black veins spread across his skin like cracks in porcelain, and his eyes, when they opened, were completely black. "Hold him down," Zareth shouted at the guards. It took 4 of them to restrain Ryker as she worked, hands glowing violet as she tried to stabilize the curse. But it was too strong. The twin moons had triggered an acceleration she hadn't anticipated. At this rate, he'd be dead by dawn. "There's nothing more I can do," the royal physician said grimly, standing back. "The curse has progressed too far." "No," Zareth said through gritted teeth, pouring more power into her stabilization spell. "I can save him. I just need—" The spell collapsed. Feedback slammed into Zareth, throwing her backward into the wall. She slid down, gasping, her own veins temporarily black from the backlash. Alara appeared in the doorway, still in her nightgown. "Zareth? What's happening?" "Get Morvain," Zareth forced out. "Now." 10 minutes later, the High Sorceress arrived, immaculate despite the late hour. She took one look at Ryker and smiled coldly. My, the curse is eating him alive. How unfortunate." "Help him," Zareth demanded, struggling to her feet. "You said you wanted him alive, so help me save him." "Oh, I will," Morvain said, "for a price." "Name it." Morvain's smile widened. "You're going to perform a soul-binding ritual. Ancient magic, very powerful. Power. It will tie Ryker's life force to mine, making me his anchor. As long as I live, he lives." Zareth's blood ran cold. "That would give you complete control over him." "Yes," Morvain agreed pleasantly, "but it would also save his life. Isn't that what you want?" Zareth looked at Ryker, still convulsing despite the guard's best efforts. At Alara, tears streaming down her face as she watched her brother dying. At the impossible choice before her: save him and doom him to a life controlled by Morvain, or let him die free. "There has to be another way," Zareth said desperately. "There isn't," Morvain said. "Not tonight, not with the twin moons amplifying the curse. Either you perform the binding, or your lover dies. Choose quickly which. Time is running out." Zareth's hand shook as she pulled out the grimoire Morvain provided. Reading through the ritual, it was exactly as the sorceress described, a soul binding that would make Morvain Ryker's permanent anchor, giving her ultimate power over the Alpha King. "Zareth." Alara touched her arm. "You can't do this. Ryker would rather die than be Morvain's puppet." "I know," Zareth whispered, "but I can't watch him die. Not when I can save him. Even if it means he'll hate you for it?" The question hit like a physical blow. Because yes, Ryker would hate her for this. Would see it as the ultimate betrayal, saving his life only to chain him to the person he'd spent years fighting against. But he'd be alive? He'd have a chance to break free eventually? And wasn't that better than death? Zareth opened her mouth to agree to the ritual when Ryker suddenly went still. His eyes cleared for just a moment, black receding enough to show amber beneath. "Don't," he gasped, his voice barely audible. "Zareth, don't do this." "I have to," she said, moving to his side. You're dying. Better dead than enslaved, Ryker forced out. Please, trust me, there's another way. What way? Zareth demanded. Tell me. But Ryker's eyes rolled back, another convulsion taking him. The black veins spread further, creeping toward his heart. Minutes left, maybe less. Morvain tapped her fingers impatiently. Decide now, or watch him die. What's it gonna be, little witch? Zareth looked at Ryker's unconscious form, at the book of dark rituals in her hands, at the life or death choice that would define everything that came after. And then, with trembling hands, she closed the grimoire. No, she said. I won't do it. Morvain's expression darkened. Then, you've killed him. No, Zareth repeated, more firmly this time. I'm going to trust him. There's another way. There has to be. She returned to Ryker's side, pressing her hands to his chest. The curse bond between them pulsed, and for the first time, she didn't fight it. Instead, she opened herself fully to the connection, letting it flood through her. And there, buried deep in the magic she'd woven 3 years ago, she felt it a flaw, not in the curse itself, but in her understanding of it. The Moonfall curse was designed to drain power, but power could flow both ways. Alara, Zareth said urgently, I need you to trust me. Can you do that? The princess nodded, though fear filled her eyes. Then take my hand, Zareth said, and whatever happens next, don't let go. As Alara gripped her hand, Zareth reached for Ryker with her other, completing a circuit. Then she did the one thing she'd sworn never to do. She reversed the curse. Instead of draining Ryker's power into nothing, she pulled it through the bond into herself, then channeled it through Alara back into Ryker. A loop of magic, using the curse's own structure against itself. The pain was excruciating. Every nerve in Zareth's body screamed as the curse tore through her, its poison and rot consuming her from the inside. But she held on, gritting her teeth, refusing to let go. Ryker's veins began to clear, his convulsions eased, the black receded, and Zareth felt herself dying in his place. What are you doing? Morvain shrieked. Stop this, you'll kill yourself. Powers? That's the idea, Zareth gasped. The curse was never meant to be transferred. It was killing her faster than it had been killing Ryker. But at least he'd live. At least he'd be free. Zareth, no, Alara cried. But she didn't let go, understanding instinctively that breaking the circuit now would kill them both. Ryker's eyes opened, clear amber once more. He saw what Zareth was doing, and horror crossed his face. Stop, he commanded, his alpha voice finally returning. Zareth, stop this right now. Can't, she whispered, black. Veins were spreading up her arms now, the curse consuming her. Almost done. I forbid you to die for me, Ryker shouted, and suddenly his hand was on top of hers and Alara's, adding his restored power to the loop. The magic surged. The circuit completed differently 3 sources instead of 2, the power flowing not in exchange but in balance. The curse, designed for one victim, couldn't maintain its structure with 3 people sharing the load. It shattered. A backlash threw all 3 of them backward. Zareth hit the floor hard, gasping. The black veins receded from her skin, leaving her weak but alive. Across the room, Ryker lay still, his chest rising and falling with steady breaths. Normal breaths. Living breaths. The curse was broken. Impossible, Morvain breathed. Then her expression twisted with rage. You foolish girl. Do you have any idea what you've done? Pow. Saved him, Zareth said, struggling to sit up. Without your help, without your binding. He's free. Morvaine's hand crackled with silver magic. Then I'll just have to try again. You'll do nothing, Ryker said, standing. He moved with strength and grace that had been absent for months, his alpha power fully restored. Aunt Morvaine, you're under arrest for attempted regicide, poisoning, and conspiracy. Guards flooded into the room at his signal. Morvaine fought, but her magic was no match for a fully powered Alpha King and a dozen enchanted restraints. As they dragged her away, still screaming threats, Ryker crossed to Zareth. He dropped to his knees beside her, hands cupping her face with desperate gentleness. "Don't ever do that again," he said, his voice shaking. "Don't ever try to die for me. You're welcome." Zareth managed a weak smile. "For, breaking the curse and saving your life." "Thank you," Ryker said seriously. Then he pulled her into his arms, holding her like she was the most precious thing in the world. "Thank you for trusting me, for finding another way." Zareth buried her face in his shoulder, exhaustion and relief washing over her in equal measure. "I couldn't do it," she whispered. "Couldn't watch you become her puppet, even if it meant losing you." "You didn't lose me," Ryker said, pulling back just enough to meet her eyes. "You saved me, in every possible way." And there, in the ruins of a broken curse, surrounded by scattered grimoires and frightened guards, Ryker Nightshade kissed the witch who had cursed him. And Zareth, for the first time in 3 years, felt something like hope. The celebration of Ryker's recovery lasted 3 days. The entire kingdom rejoiced. Their Alpha King, thought to be dying, was fully restored. But in the dungeons beneath the palace, Morvaine smiled in her cell, patient as a spider in its web, because she had planned for this. All of it. 10 days after the curse broke, Zareth woke to find Thornhaven in chaos. Elara burst into her chambers, face pale. "It's Ryker. He's collapsed. The healers can't wake him." Zareth's blood turned to ice. She ran to his chambers, still in her nightgown, magic already crackling at her fingertips. But when she reached his side, checking frantically for the curse's return, she found nothing. No curse, no poison. Just Ryker lying unconscious, his breathing shallow but steady. "What's wrong with him?" Elara demanded. "I don't know," Zareth admitted. "There's no magic affecting him, no poison in his blood. It's like he's just asleep." For 3 days, Ryker remained unconscious. Zareth barely left his side, trying every diagnostic spell she knew. Nothing worked. He simply wouldn't wake. On the 4th day, a message arrived. Written in elegant script, delivered by enchanted raven. "If you want him to wake, come to the Whispering Ruins at sunset. Come alone. M." Zareth crumpled the note in her fist. Of course, Morvaine had planned this from the beginning. The curse, the poisoning, the dramatic rescue. All of it orchestrated to bring Zareth to Thornhaven, to make her care about Ryker. And now the real trap was springing closed. "It's obviously a trap," Elara said when Zareth showed her the message. "You can't go." "I have to," Zareth said. "She has some kind of hold on him. If I don't go, he might never wake." "Then take guards. Take the army if you need to," she said alone. Zareth looked at Ryker's unconscious form, her heart aching. "And something tells me she means it. Come for that." The Whispering Ruins stood at the edge of Thornhaven's territory, ancient stones marking a place where the veil between worlds grew thin. Zareth arrived at sunset, her magic ready, her guard up. Morvaine waited among the stones, no longer in chains. She wore elegant robes of silver and black, her power fully restored. "How?" Zareth demanded. "The palace wards should have contained you." "Oh, child," Morvain laughed. Did you really think those dungeons could hold me? I've been free since the first night. I simply waited for the right moment to make my move. Zareth's magic flared. Wake him. Now. Or what? You'll curse me? Morvain tilted her head. We both know you won't. Not after what it cost you to break the last curse. Not when you've developed such inconvenient feelings for my nephew. What do you want? Zareth demanded. The same thing I've always wanted, Morvain said. Control of Thornhaven. But Ryker has proven difficult to manipulate. Paces. So I've decided to try a different approach. She smiled. You're going to kill him. Zareth's blood ran cold. What? The sleeping spell I cast will keep him unconscious until the next new moon, 3 weeks from now. If you haven't killed him by then, the spell becomes permanent. He'll sleep forever. A living corpse, while I rule as regent in his place. You're insane, Zareth breathed. Why would I ever? Because if you don't kill Ryker, Morvain interrupted, I'll kill someone else. Someone you care about even more. She gestured, and a portal opened in the air. Through it, Zareth saw a cell, and in that cell, unconscious but alive, was a young man with sandy hair and gentle features. Features she knew as well as her own. Davin, she whispered. Surprise, Morvain purred. He never died. The execution was faked. I needed leverage over you. After all, I've kept him in magical stasis for 3 years, waiting for this moment. Tears streamed down Zareth's face. Her brother, alive. After 3 years of grief, of guilt, of believing him dead, he was alive. Here's your choice, Morvain said. Kill Ryker, and I'll release Davin. You can have your brother back, live out your lives far from here, or refuse, and watch them both sleep forever while I take everything, Pays. Why are you doing this? Zareth demanded, for tenure. Because I want to see if you've truly changed, Morvain said. 3 years ago, you cursed a man for killing your brother. Now I'm asking you to kill a man to save that same brother. Will you choose vengeance again? Or has your precious love made you weak? The portal closed. Morvain handed Zareth a vial of silver liquid. This poison is undetectable, painless. Slip it into Ryker's water when he wakes, and he will wake, briefly, in 3 days, and he'll simply drift back to sleep, forever. No one will ever know. And if I refuse? Zareth asked, though she already knew the answer. Then in 3 weeks, when the spell becomes permanent, I'll kill Davin in front of you before putting you both in cells beside Ryker. A lovely family reunion, all of you conscious but unable to move or speak for the rest of your very long, magically extended lives. Morvain vanished in a swirl of silver light, leaving Zareth alone among the ancient stones, with the vial of poison clutched in her shaking hand. Kill the man she'd come to care for, or lose her brother, the brother she'd mourned, whose death had driven her to curse Ryker in the first place forever. Some choices, Zareth realized as she sank to her knees in the grass, weren't choices at all. They were just different ways of losing everything that mattered. For 3 days, Zareth barely ate, barely slept. She kept the vial hidden in her chambers, its weight a constant accusation. Every time she looked at Ryker's unconscious form, she felt the choice crushing her. Davin was alive. Her brother, her last family, the person whose death had defined her life for 3 years alive. But saving him meant murdering Ryker. The man she'd cursed, yes. But also the man who'd shown genuine remorse, who'd fought beside her to break the curse, who'd held her like she was something precious instead of something dangerous. The man she'd gods help her fallen in love with. On the morning of the 3rd day, Ryker's eyes opened. Zareth? His voice was weak, confused. What happened? She should have been relieved. Instead, dread filled her as she helped him sit up, giving him water, plain water, not poisoned, not yet. Morvain cast a sleeping spell, Zareth explained, her voice mechanical. Unconscious for 3 days. I feel strange, Ryker said. Foggy, like I'm not fully here. He reached for her hand. But I can feel you. The bond between us. It's the only thing that feels real. Zareth's eyes burned with unshed tears. This might be the last time she spoke to him like this before the poison, before the murder she was contemplating. Ryker, she said carefully. If you had to choose between saving someone you loved or keeping your honor, which would you choose? He studied her face, reading the pain there. Is this about your brother? She jerked back. How? Alara told me, Ryker said. About Morvain's message. About the deadline. His hand tightened on hers. She also told me she's been having the same nightmares for 3 nights, dreams of Davin alive somewhere. Morvain's been sending them, hasn't she? Taunting you with the possibility. They're not just possibilities, Zareth whispered. He's alive, Ryker, she showed me. He's been in stasis for 3 years, and she'll release him if I— Her voice broke. If you kill me, Ryker finished quietly. That's the deal. Zareth couldn't meet his eyes. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But he's my brother. He's all the family I have left. And for 3 years I thought he was dead because of— She stopped, realizing what she was about to say. Because of me? Ryker said. Because I executed him. Or thought I did. He laughed bitterly. Gods! Morvain planned this perfectly. She knew exactly how to torture us both. I don't know what to do, Zareth admitted, tears finally falling. I can't kill you, but I can't lose Davin again. I can't. Most werewolf story. Ryker was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached for the cup of water on his bedside table, the one Zareth had prepared, still unpoisoned, but waiting. Then don't lose him, Ryker said simply. Give me the poison. No, Zareth. His voice was gentle but firm. I took your brother from you. Let me give him back. Quote, It's not the same. Zareth grabbed his wrist, stopping him from drinking. You didn't know he was innocent. This would be murder, cold-blooded murder. Quote, It would be sacrifice, Ryker corrected. And after everything I've done, every mistake I've made as king, maybe it's the right way to go? Saving an innocent life with my guilty one? You're not guilty, Zareth said fiercely. Not anymore. You've changed. You've grown. You deserve to live. Maybe, Ryker allowed, but Davin deserves to live more. He never did anything wrong. He's the true innocent in all of this. Zareth shook her head frantically. There has to be another way. We can storm Morvain's location, break Davin out. You said she's threatening to kill him if you don't comply. Do you really want to risk your brother's life on a rescue that might not work? I won't kill you, Zareth said, her voice breaking. I won't. I won't. I cursed you because I was drowning in grief and rage, and it nearly destroyed us both. I won't make that mistake again. I won't lose you. Not when I finally— She stopped, unable to finish. Finally what? Ryker asked softly. Found you? Zareth whispered. Not the Alpha King, not the man who made mistakes. Just you. The person who reads with me in the library. Who makes terrible jokes when he's in pain to keep me from worrying. Who looks at me like I'm someone worth saving, instead of someone who should be feared. Ryker set down the cup and pulled her into his arms. Then we find another way, he said. Together. Like we've done everything else. But even as he held her, even as Zareth clung to him like he was the only solid thing in a world gone mad, She could feel time slipping away. 3 weeks until the sleeping spell became permanent. 3 weeks to save both the man she loved and the brother she'd mourned. 3 weeks to do the impossible. Again. That night, after Ryker had drifted back into magical sleep, Zareth sat in the royal library, surrounded by every text on dark magic, ancient spells, and impossible bargains. She read until her eyes burned, until the candles guttered low. And finally, in a text so old the pages crumbled at her touch, she found it, the resurrection bargain. A spell that could trade one life for another, but only if both parties consented, and only if the trade was made willingly, with full knowledge of the cost. It was dark magic, dangerous magic, the kind of spell that could destroy the caster if performed incorrectly. But it was a way out. A way to save both Ryker and Davin, if she was willing to pay the price herself. Zareth stared at the spell, her heart pounding. She'd spent 3 years running from dark magic, trying to atone for the curse she'd cast in anger. And now here she was, considering the darkest magic of all. But what was the alternative? Let Morvain win? Choose between the two people she loved most? No. She'd find another way. She always did. As dawn broke over Thornhaven, Zareth made her decision. Not to give in to Morvain's demands, not to sacrifice Ryker or accept losing Davin, but to confront the High Sorceress one final time and end this, whatever the cost. The confrontation happened at the Whispering Ruins, under a sky bruised purple with an approaching storm. Zareth arrived alone as demanded, but this time she came prepared. Every spell she'd researched, every trick she'd learned in 3 years of exile, all of it focused into a single purpose. Save them both. Destroy Morvain. Survive. You came? Morvain said, materializing from the shadows between standing stones. I wasn't certain you would. Have you made your choice? I have, Zareth said. Violet fire ignited around her hands, brighter than it had ever been. I choose neither. Morvain's expression darkened. That wasn't an option. I'm making it one. Zareth interrupted. The resurrection bargain. A life for a life, freely given. I offer mine in exchange for both of theirs. For the first time, Morvain looked genuinely surprised. You'd die to save them both? How deliciously selfless. But there's a problem, child. The resurrection bargain requires consent from all parties. Did you really think I'd agree to let you die in their place? I don't need your consent, Zareth said. Just theirs, and I already have it. She pulled out 2 items, a lock of Ryker's hair, taken while he slept, and a small vial containing a drop of blood, Davin's blood, preserved in stasis for 3 years, in Morvain's keeping, but stolen by Alara during a daring raid on the sorceress's secondary lair, just hours ago. Morvain's eyes widened. Impossible. No one knows where I kept the boy. Your apprentice did, Zareth said. The one you've been training in secret. Turns out he's not as loyal as you thought. Not when Princess Alara offered him immunity and a position in the royal court. Rage twisted Morvain's beautiful features. You meddling little. Resurrection bargain. Initiated, Zareth shouted, slamming her hands to the ground. Magic erupted from the ancient stones, recognizing the old spell, the old power. The world tilted, reality bent, and suddenly, Zareth stood in a space between spaces, the liminal realm where souls waited before passing on. Before her stood 2 figures, Ryker, looking confused but whole. And beside him, Davin, her brother, exactly as she remembered him, with sandy hair and gentle eyes full of concern. Z, Davin breathed. What's happening? Where am I? You're safe, Zareth said, tears streaming down her face. You're going to live. Both of you. Not if you die for us, Ryker said sharply. He turned to Davin. Stop her. Tell her you won't accept this bargain. But Davin was staring at Ryker with recognition dawning in his eyes. You're the king, the one who ordered my execution. Yes, Ryker said quietly. I'm the one responsible for all of this, so if anyone should die, it should be me. No one else is dying, Zareth shouted. Listen to me, both of you. The bargain doesn't have to be permanent death. There's a loophole. If I can anchor my soul to something in the living world, I can return, but I need time. Time for you, Ryker, to wake up and break Morvaine's sleeping spell. Time for you, Davin, to be released from stasis. Time for both of you to find the anchor I've prepared. What anchor? Ryker demanded. Zareth pulled out a pendant, a simple thing of twisted silver and violet crystal. This holds a piece of my soul. I bound it before coming here. If you can get it to the heartwood tree in the Blackwood forest and perform the calling ritual, you can bring me back. If? Davin said. That's not good enough. It has to be, Zareth said. Morvaine won't stop. She'll keep torturing us, keep using you against each other. This is the only way to end it. Then let me do it, Ryker said. I'm the king. I'm the one who started all of this. Let me be the sacrifice. No, Davin said quietly. Both of them turned to him in surprise. No more sacrifices, no more deaths. Zareth, you said there's a loophole, that you can come back if we perform the ritual. If, Zareth stressed, it's not guaranteed. Then we'll make it guaranteed, Davin said firmly. Ryker, can you wake yourself from Morvaine's spell if you have motivation enough? Possibly, Ryker admitted. With sufficient emotional impetus, I might be able to break through. Good, Davin said. Because if my sister dies to save us, and you let her stay dead, I'll kill you myself. Clear? Despite everything, Ryker smiled. Crystal clear. This is insane, Zareth said. So is everything else we've done, Davin pointed out. At least this way, we're all choosing it together. He took his sister's hands. I missed you, Z. These 3 years in stasis, I was aware sometimes. I could feel you out there, feel your grief. It killed me, knowing I couldn't tell you I was alive. Then don't leave me again, Zareth whispered. Quote, I won't. Davin promised. Neither of us will. We'll bring you back. I swear it. The liminal space began to fade. The spell was completing. The bargain accepted. Zareth felt herself being pulled away, her soul separating from her body. Wait, Ryker grabbed her hand. Before you go, I need to tell you. I know, Zareth said, seeing everything in his golden eyes. I know, and when you bring me back, I'll tell you the same thing. Then the world went white, and Zareth felt herself falling into darkness, into silence, into death, power. But not forever, just for a little while. Just long enough for 2 men who should have been enemies to save the witch who'd bound them together. Back in the Whispering Ruins, Zareth's body crumpled to the ground. Morvaine screamed in fury as her carefully laid plans shattered. The sleeping spell on Ryker broke with Zareth's death. She'd been its true anchor, not Morvaine's magic. And Davin, in his cell, stirred and woke for the first time in 3 years. Morvaine fled into the night, her power broken, her schemes in ruins. And in a palace miles away, Ryker Nightshade woke gasping, clutching a silver pendant, and knew exactly what he had to do. The heartwood tree stood in the deepest part of Blackwood Forest, a massive oak so ancient it predated kingdoms, so sacred that even dark witches feared to harm it. Ryker reached it 3 days after Zareth's death, Davin and Alara at his side. They'd barely slept, barely stopped, driven by desperate urgency, and the pendant that pulsed with faint violet light, proof that Zareth's soul still lingered, waiting. "Tell me again," Davin said as they began preparing the ritual circle. "Tell me this will work." "It will work," Ryker said with more confidence than he felt. "It has to." They'd found the ritual instructions in Zareth's notes, along with a letter addressed to both of them. "If you're reading this, I'm dead, or mostly dead. Don't panic. Davin, stop panicking. The calling ritual requires 3 things: my soul anchor, the pendant, a blood offering from someone who loves me, and a willing sacrifice of power from someone whose life I saved. Davin, you're the first. Your blood, given freely, will call to our shared bloodline. Ryker, you're the second. The curse I broke saved your life. That magic created a debt. Use it. And whoever's reading this to them, probably Alara. Thank you for helping these 2 idiots not kill each other while I was gone. See you soon. Don't be late. Being dead is boring." Z, quote, "She's insufferable even in death," Ryker muttered. But his hands shook as he placed the pendant in the center of the circle. "That's my sister," Davin said, but there was love in his voice. The ritual required precision runes, drawn in silver, candles placed at cardinal points, both of them, bleeding into a chalice that would be poured over the pendant at the exact moment of moonrise. "Ready?" Alara asked from where she stood guard outside the circle. Ryker and Davin looked at each other, these 2 men bound by tragedy, connected by the woman they both loved in different ways. "Ready," they said in unison. As the moon crested the trees, they poured the blood. The pendant blazed with light. And Ryker, drawing on every ounce of his restored alpha power, shouted the words of the calling spell. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the heartwood tree began to glow. Its bark split open, revealing a doorway of pure light. And through that doorway stepped Zareth, looking dazed but alive, her violet eyes wide with wonder. "Did it work?" she asked. "Am I?" "Zareth." Davin tackled her in a hug so fierce he lifted her off her feet. "Don't you ever do that again." Potters C. 3 years of thinking you were dead, then waking up to find out you actually died. For real, do you have any idea? "Can't breathe," Zareth gasped. But she was laughing, crying, holding her brother like she'd never let go. Ryker stood back, watching them reunite, his heart full of too many emotions to name. When Davin finally released her, Zareth turned to him, quote, "You did it," she said softly. "You brought me back." "We did it," Ryker corrected. "Together, like everything else." Zareth crossed the distance between them. "I died owing you something. A confession. You don't owe me anything," Ryker said. "Shut up and let me say it," Zareth said. Then, taking his face in her hands, she spoke the words she'd been too afraid to say before. "I love you. Not despite everything that happened, but because of it. Because you showed me that people can change, can grow, can become better than their worst mistakes. You're not the king who executed my brother anymore. You're the man who helped me save him, the man who broke a curse with me, the man I choose, freely and completely." Ryker's response was to kiss her deep and thorough and full of all the feeling he'd kept buried during her death. When they finally broke apart, Davin was watching with an expression somewhere between happiness and exasperation. "So," he said, "I'm alive, you're alive, she's alive. What happens now?" "Now," Alara said, stepping into the circle with a grin, "we deal with Aunt Morvain." It took 3 weeks to track the High Sorceress down. She'd fled to the borderlands, trying to raise an army to retake Thornhaven. But her power was broken, her reputation destroyed. When Ryker's forces found her, she surrendered without a fight. At her trial, Morvayn stood defiant. "I did what was necessary to secure Thornhaven's future." "You tortured my family," Ryker said coldly, "poisoned me, manipulated everyone around me, and faked a boy's death to use as leverage. That's not securing the future. That's treason. Powers, the sentence is exile," Zareth said, stepping forward. She'd been granted special authority as both victim and the witch who'd ultimately defeated Morvayn's schemes. Magical exile. "Your power will be bound, your ability to cast spells stripped away. You'll live out your days as the one thing you always feared being ordinary." Morvayn's eyes widened with genuine horror. "You can't—" "I can," Zareth said. "And I am." The binding ritual took mere minutes. When it was done, Morvayn was just another powerless woman, her beauty and charm all that remained of the sorceress she'd been. They sent her north to a remote village, where she'd live under watch but free from dungeons. A mercy, some said. A cruelty. Others argued, forcing her to live without the power that had defined her. Zareth didn't care which it was. Morvayn was no longer her problem. 3 months after Zareth's resurrection, Thornhaven celebrated a double wedding. Princess Alara married Captain Thorn. A surprise to everyone except those who'd seen them training together for years. And Ryker Nightshade married Zareth Ravenna in a ceremony that united witch and king, curse-caster and cursed, in bonds stronger than any magic. Davin gave his sister away, tears streaming down his face. "You're sure about this?" he whispered as they walked down the aisle. "Marrying the man who signed my death warrant?" "Xiomara's, I'm sure," Zareth whispered back. "Because he's not that man anymore. And I'm not the witch who cursed him. We're just us. Two people who found each other in the darkness." "Good," Davin said. "Because if he hurts you, I'll kill him." "I know," Zareth smiled. "I'm counting on it." At the altar, Ryker took her hands, and the curse bond between them, transformed now into something bright and living, pulsed with shared joy. "I never thought I'd get this," Ryker admitted quietly, just for her. "A second chance. A new beginning. You." "Neither did I," Zareth said. "I thought my story ended with a curse and a death. I didn't know it was just the beginning." They sealed their vows with a kiss that tasted like hope and healing, like justice served and mercy given, like endings that were really beginnings in disguise. And in the years that followed, they ruled together, the Alpha King and his Witch Queen. They weren't perfect. They made mistakes, had arguments, struggled with the weight of crowns and the scars of their shared past. But they were together, and together, they'd already done the impossible. Everything else was just practice. 5 years later, a girl with violet eyes and her father's smile played in the royal gardens while her parents watched from a nearby bench. "Think she'll inherit your magic?" Ryker asked, his hand resting on Zareth's slightly rounded stomach, a second child on the way. "Probably," Zareth said. "Poor thing, having a witch for a mother and an Alpha King for a father. She's going to be impossible." "She already is," Ryker said fondly as their daughter tried to make the flowers bloom out of season, magic sparking from her tiny hands. Davin approached, bouncing his own infant son in his arms. He'd married a healer from the lower city, and they lived in a cottage near the palace, close enough to visit, far enough for privacy. "Your daughter is teaching my son bad habits," Davin complained, but he was smiling. "Good," Zareth said. "He needs to learn to keep up with her." As the two children played under their parents' watchful eyes, Zareth leaned into Ryker's embrace, feeling the steady beat of his heart against her back. "Do you ever regret it?" Ryker asked softly. The curse, I mean. If you hadn't cast it, we never would have met like this. Zareth thought about it, really thought about it. About Davin's death that wasn't a death. About the curse that had nearly killed them both. About the darkness they'd waded through to find light. No, she said finally. I regret the pain, the loss, the wasted time. But not the journey that brought us here. She turned to kiss him softly. Besides, curses can be broken. Some bonds are forever. And there, in a garden where nightshade grew beside roses, where dark magic and alpha power intertwined like clasped hands, two people who should have destroyed each other built something beautiful instead. A family. A kingdom. A love that had survived death itself. Most fairy tales begin with, once upon a time, but their tale began with a curse and ended with forever. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed the story. Let me know in the comments what you thought about this different take on enemies to lovers with witches and werewolves. See you in the next story.